Welcome to Ranger Stories. My name is Tennyson E. Stead. I'm the creator of Jump Rangers, and this is the show where I read things that I'm writing in the Jump Rangers universe and probably edit and discuss them for your viewing pleasure. Today we're reading Jump Rangers, a game called Conquest, Chapter 20. If you'd like to catch up on previous episodes of Ranger Stories, you can find those episodes on our YouTube channel at youtube.com at /Jump Rangers. I don't like the backslash YouTube. I don't like it. The at throws me. It's an issue. I don't know why they need it. All right. Let's begin. Well, first of all, before we begin, actually, let me say we've reached a little bit of a landmark. I know I mentioned this on the metagame stream, which is that the Jump Rangers, a game called Conquest, the rough draft is finished, which I'm proud of. I've never actually finished a book before. My producer Lucinda Bruce is dancing in the background, and we're gonna finish this read through. Part of the reason why I was doing this read through, to be completely honest, was to keep myself accountable and keep myself moving forward. That tape is Ippy Looney. That's okay. It's all right. It's all part of the show. This is why we do it live. That's okay. But I did lose my train of thought, so I guess we'll just start in on the story. And as you'll notice, I'm reading. I've got my reading glasses on now. These are becoming more and more a necessity. I just can't see the screen anymore. I'm getting old, people. In the space between the flooring of the Saurian mothership impending's trash airlocks and the undersore workspaces in the deck below, on the deck below, human beings have built an outpost called Payload Station that bunks about 40 colonists and warehouses the supplies and tech that get smuggled between Planet Soros and Planet Link. At Payload Station, an old lady named Governor Greta Finchley runs things with a gruff and snappy impatience that gives the impression of maybe not liking kids so much. Not true. Her discipline comes from taking her job seriously. In her mind, making sure that the people at Payload Station are safe is only half the job. Both the people at Paxis Base, the colonists at yes, too many peoples. Both the colonists at Paxis Base and the people at Deep Down rely on her to shuttle supplies, information, and workers and migrants. Both of these bases are thriving, at least in part, because they get a lot of help from one another. Most of that help goes through Governor Finchley and the handful of people living on the Impending. If exterminators aboard the Impending ever found Payload Station, maybe because someone was being noisy or careless, things would change. In every corner, things would change for the worse. In just about every corner of the colonies. That's fair. Governor Finchley knows what it takes to keep the colonies connected to one another. For someone like that, for someone like her, we're just going to go ahead and say, for someone like Governor Finchley, we've already said that she knows what it takes to keep the colonies connected. We've discussed it. For someone like Governor Finchley, Commander Sutro Paxis is a hero. When she noticed that Commander Paxis was treating the Sarge and I with a little bit of an attitude, let's call it suspicion, she started giving us the cold treatment. No special treats from the kitchen, no love from the quartermaster. Our bunks were right beneath the gears for the airlock. Anytime the Saurians went to space their trash, the rattling would shimmy the Sarge right out of his bunk. Right out of his bed. Because we don't need to use the word bunk more than once. Why would we? Are we animals? No. We're writers, damn it. During the day, the commander would press the Sarge and I for more information about the spore. Well, he obviously knew that Scrap was there. While he obviously knew that Scrap was listening to our conversations, he kept his interrogations pointed at the Sarge and I. None of us wanted the people at Payload Station finding out about the mislings. If they did, word would spread across the colonies before we had a chance to figure things out. If they did, word would spread. We're just going to shrink this down a little bit. Okay. None of us wanted the people at Payload Station finding out about the Mistlings. If they did, word would spread. Mistlings and humans had gotten off to a rough launch with most glorious and exceptional squeak of the lizard ship Vitriol, letting humans and Mistlings figure one another out in a free for all. This I'm saying too much here. Mistlings and humans had gotten up to a rough launch with most glorious and exceptional squeak of the blizzard ship Vitriol, so Scrap stayed in the Sarge's pocket. When I wasn't tinkering with the wrench rigs, when the Sarge wasn't sneaking out to spy on off-duty undersoars to work on his language skills, we were sitting in a quiet corner of the colony's mess hall with Commander Paxis. Pressing people for details was very much the commander's thing. If there's something you want to hide from him, he'll get you talking just to prove it was a secret worth keeping in the first place. After 2 weeks with nothing to do but question the sergeant and I, he knew about Eden. He knew about Moldavite. Thanks to Scrap, though, we couldn't tell him where those places were or how to find them. We'd never even taken a mothership, let alone stolen a look at any kind of star chart. Scrap was the only one who knew how to find those places. And Scrap had agreed beforehand that he'd flicker out and disappear if Paxis threatened him with any trouble. Saying as much to the commander was enough to keep him from pressing Scrap for details. When a mothership lands at an established spaceport, and there's no spaceport in the Saurian Empire more established than Dragon City, you can leave the ship through the ventilation system. When the Saurians dump their trash, they don't fill those airlocks back up with air. All they do is dump the waste, close the ship back up, and then open the inner airlock the next time someone needs to throw some stuff away. When that happens, air gets sucked into the airlock from the inner hall. Maybe once a week you'll see some undersore waste disposalist get knocked on his face by the pull from the vacuum. What this means for colonies like Payload Station is that the waste systems aren't tied into the ventilation system. To get on and off the ship, you need to make your way to some other part of the ship and break into the ventilation shafts. Alright. I am a little confused about why I started this whole idea off with when a mothership lands at an established spaceport. Let's just finish. I think this needs to be edited. What this means for colonies like Payload Station is that the waste systems aren't tied into the ventilation. To get on and off the ship, you need to make your way to some other part of the ship and break into the ventilation shafts. Getting on the impending, we'd already climbed through the walls from the air vents down to waste disposal. Getting back up was easy enough, and Commander Paxis was skinnier than a lot of grown-ups. Plus, he traveled light. Okay. I think we just don't need all this stuff. I think they just included a lot of detail that's not. Okay. For colonies like Payload Station, the problem with using air cans is that the weight systems aren't tied into the ventilation. That's fair. Is that the weight system? So yeah, we just needed to reorganize things a little bit. I think those details are actually kind of nice. I think they help sort of anchor. Like this is wrench talking, right? They help anchor the character a little bit. Plus, he traveled light. Any Saurian ship is going to. So it reads like this. When a mothership lands at an established spaceport, and there's no spaceport in the Saurian Empire more established than Dragon City, you leave the ship through the ventilation system. For colonies like Payload Station, the problem with using air cans is that the waste systems aren't tied into the ventilation. When the Saurians dump their trash, they don't fill those airlocks back up with air. All they do is dump the waste, close the ship back up, and then open the inner airlock the next time someone needs to throw some stuff away. When that happens, air gets sucked into the airlock from the inner hull. Maybe once a week you'll see some undersore waste disposalist get knocked on his face by the pull from the vacuum. To get on and off the ship, you need to make your way to some other part of the ship and to some other to get to leave the mothership. You need to break into the ventilation shafts. Getting on the impending, we'd already climbed through the walls from the air vents down to waste disposal. Getting back up was easy enough, and Commander Paxis was skinnier than a lot of grown-ups, plus he traveled light. Any Saurian ship is going to have a bunch of ports on the outer hull, where it can take on things like fuel and water and whatever else it needs to run. One of those ports is for fresh atmosphere, which gets pumped in through massive hoses connected to atmosphere processors down on the cargo deck of the spaceport. Climbing down those hoses is easy, because they're made out of segmented joints. From the inside, so long as they're not moving and swaying too much, they work just like a ladder. Once you get down into the air processing chamber, there's a huge fan to hack and disable. If you can do that, if you do that without drawing attention from any undersore maintenance crews, then you have to make your way through a chemical treatment room full of nozzles and spraying toxic garbage through the air to give it just the right mix of nastiness and stink to support Saurian life. Going through that chamber without your suit sealed up is a very bad idea, but we all had our space kits on. We'd all done this many, many times. On the other side of that room is another big fan, and a big drop to the underground tunnels leading to the outskirts of the city. Out beyond the bubble of soot and fumes that hangs over every Saurian city or outpost, the air can facility sucks clean air into the tunnel through a massive turbine. Climbing down through the hose outside of the mothership, the Sarge and I led Commander Paxis to the fan outside the atmosphere processing chamber. Like the master I am, I popped the excess hatch off the fan's motor controls and plugged in my data deck. Setting the fan to shut down just long enough to let us through, I led the Sarge and the commander into the loud and misty atmosphere processing room. When undersores are working, they usually work in groups of 8. 8 undersore technicians, all of them dressed in their baggy hazardous material suits, stood there staring at us as we climbed through that fan. Immediately, one of them reached for their comm. If the Sarge and I had been alone, we could have just gotten small and disappeared. Admiral Paxis didn't have a wrench rig, and Scrap was in the Sarge's helmet. What's more, with Scrap stuck inside the Sarge's jumpsuit, there was no way for them to just flicker us all to safety. Taking cover behind the blades of the fan, which were bound to start turning again at any moment, the Sarge started fixing a boomer to the front of his firecracker. Sarge, no! These fans blow tons of air a minute, and it's all going one way. The blast from that boomer is going to get funneled right back in our faces. Tie yourself off. Use the Sarge's grappling line and tether up to these struts here. Let me handle this and give me some covering fire. While the commander starts shooting at the undersores from behind the fan blades, and while the Sarge tethered the commander and himself to the iron struts that suspended the fan's engine in the tunnel, I got small and dashed out into the atmosphere processing chamber. While the undersore technicians dove for cover under the commander's assault, I sprinted across the chamber to the second fan. Behind them, behind the undersores, that's what we need to be clear about. Yes, hang on one sec. Yes, my love. Were you talking to me? Yum. Ibuluni is enjoying a cookie. That's what's happening. And the dog is jealous. No, thank you. I'm good. All right. I got big again and opened up the fan's motor casing. Shooting up the atmosphere processing chamber, the sergeant and the commander kept the undersore techs from turning around to notice me. Just as I was starting to hack the second fan, the first one, the fan the sergeant and Commander Paxis were hiding behind, started running again. Both the gale force winds and the sound of the winding turbine were telling me as much. You'd think the sergeant would be smarter than to try shooting through a turbine engine. Hearing the spack of a firecracker discharge back to back with the metal scrape of a fan blade breaking free and lodging itself in the wall of the hose told me otherwise. Wincing, I raced to finish my work before the undersores turned around and noticed me. Most of the undersores were advancing on the fan where Paxis and the Sarge were hiding. One of them was fussing over its comm. Sure enough, one of the undersores turned around from the cover they were hiding behind to look me straight in the eye. Just then, inevitably, one of the undersores turned around from cover they were hiding behind to look me straight in the eye. Pushing a button, I uploaded the code I'd been writing in the motor's operating system. Setting the motor to run at maximum power, I tied my grappling cable off to the strut. Speeding up, the fan turned the atmosphere processing chamber into a wind tunnel. For as long as they could, Paxis and the Sarge kept up their suppressing fire. Hang on one sec, I got a cough. Soon enough, the toolboxes and diagnostic gear hauled down here by the undersword techs started sliding across the floor, hiding towards the fan. Hiding behind their cover, the underswords tried to keep from Hiding behind their cover, the underswords tried to keep from slipping towards the fan. Dangling from the Sarge's grappling line, both the Sarge and Commander Paxis were lifted off the floor and blown back up towards the mothership's ventilation system. Wind was ripping past my jumpsuit, and I started to wonder how much my suit would take before it tore. One by one, the underswords were lifted off their feet and thrown into the fan by the tornado of wind in the processing chamber. Winching myself up to the fan's motor, I killed the engine and dropped to the floor. Picking myself up, I raced over to the Sarge and the Commander and shut down the fan between us. Now that we were back together, taking stock in the atmosphere processing chamber, we had some decisions to make. Undersores know that humans like to use the air cans to get on and off their motherships. When these technicians called in for help, which is almost certainly what they were doing with those comms, a drop nest with a squad of exterminators would be deployed to the air can at the under end of the tunnel in front of us. Another drop nest would be hitting the ground over our heads in case we tried to climb up into the cargo yard beneath the mothership. No matter which way we went, there was going to be a squad of exterminators waiting to blow us up. Not everybody knows this, but undersword disruptors actually blow you up. Antimatter explodes anything it touches. If undersword weapons seem like they're just very aggressive-looking flamethrowers, it's because those antimatter beams are actually exploding the air particles in front of them. If you get caught in the path of an antimatter beam, it'll explode you too. Going forward wasn't a great option. If we went up, there's a chance we'd get to the cargo yard before the drop nest landed, but drop nests are fast. Their pilots are really good at what they do. Besides, exterminators or no, we'd be 3 humans running around in a Saurian cargo yard in the heart of the Saurian Empire. Maybe if we didn't have the grown-up with us, we could pull it off. Instead, we climbed back up into the mothership. Scrambling through the ventilation systems of the impending, we found a grate overlooking the hangar. Sneaking into a Dragon starfighter, we fired up the engines and rammed our way through the hangar doors. Ramming our way out of the impending isn't as reckless as it sounds. Any pilot knows that Dragons are built to tuck in their wings, hunker down the pilot, and ram through enemy ships. Still, it's the kind of move that draws attention. When we pull stunts like this, the Sarge is our pilot. Normally, we'd flip a Dragon over, pour some disruptor fire back in that hangar, and blow up any ships they might use to follow us. With the impending, we'd be risking the people at Payload Outpost. Checking his fire, the Sarge decided it was better to just open the engines up as wide as they can go and get us out of Dragon City. Soon as we'd left the hangar, I could see the Sarge's gamble paying off. War had come to Soros. Half the city was in flames. In all the chaos and fighting, was anybody going to notice one missing space fighter? Before we had time to taste our freedom, 3 dragons were chasing our tail. 2 of them were boxing us in with disruptor fire, while the third one armored up and charged in to ram us, diving down towards the hard blackened bubbles and spires of Dragon City. The Sarge managed to duck the attack, but these pilots knew what they were doing. Strong as he was, the Sarge wasn't a trained dragon pilot. Unless we found a way out of this, these pilots had us pretty well licked. For centuries upon centuries, Dragon City has been built over its own ruins. Beneath the skyline of Dragon City is an underground maze of warrens and ruins. There's too many ruins. Warrens is an underground maze of warrens and ancient structures, long since abandoned by the Rexors who run the Saurian Empire, and taken over by undersore criminals and transients. In the Undercity, which is what this place is called, you can find just about anything. If you're very lucky, Or if you have something people want, you can even find a way out of Dragon City. If we could get to the Undercity, maybe we'd have a chance. That's when the Sarge remembered that our ship was an Octonian-powered battering ram. Diving towards a gap in the buildings below us, the Sarge throttled the engine and told us to hang on to something. That's the end of chapter 20. I have to say, it's pretty well. It's action packed, but I like it. I think it's exciting. I this is the first draft, and what I'm realizing is I haven't done enough with the relationship between Sudropaxis and the kids, and I'm going to work on that in subsequent drafts. One of the things, once I finish this read through, one of the pieces of advice that I've gotten about revising novels that I think is probably really good advice is to not edit the text, but instead to rewrite the text, to actually have the old copy in front of you and type it back into the computer. Because if you can't be bothered to type what you've already written, then it's not good enough. And I think that's true. Um, and I'm the fastest hunt and peck typer you'll ever meet. So I think it won't take me too long. I think that's the next step for this process. I'm also going to bring in an editor into the process to talk to me about structurally what needs to change about the book. And I know who to talk to about that. But I think it's good. I think overall I think it's a fun read, and I do like this chapter. So that's what's going on. Um, this week is going to be busy. I have a ghostwriting project that I've just started. So once I get this video posted, that's going to be my focus through the end of the week. We did have a new episode of Metagame on Saturday. You can catch it on YouTube. There's going to be another one this Saturday. You can always follow us on the stream on Twitch. You can join us if you don't catch the Twitch streams. You can join us at the YouTube channel. And I'm going to be getting more reliable both about the Jump Rangers streaming and about the Star Citizen streaming that I do, because I think that building up my Twitch community in general is going to be helpful when it comes to Jump Rangers, and you know, I want to build more relationships in game development. Jump Rangers is transmedia, and I'm learning a ton from being involved in the Star Citizen community about how game development works and how it doesn't work, and about what what game developers want from the process of game development and what they don't get. What makes independent game development appealing and important for game developers creatively. I'm learning a lot, and I want to make sure that I kind of expand on that and build out that community, because I think the tabletop role playing game of Jump Rangers is such a great way to kind of secure relationships with the people who are going to enjoy this content the most and make the most of it. And it's a good game. It's just a great game. So so I'm going to be more conscious about staying on schedule with Twitch. Um, I don't know. I don't know what else there is to say. It's going to be a busy week. Thank you for watching this. If you catch it on YouTube, I'll post it on Instagram as well. And I will be back next week. We're going to wrap. There's 33 chapters and an epilogue. So we're almost at the 2/3 point with these Ranger Stories episodes. And I don't know what I'm going to do next for Ranger Stories, but I'll think of something. We're not going to stop doing this. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for being here. Have a great week, and don't be a stranger, Ranger.